Hey guys, welcome back. We're here at LVO for the third round of the Conquest, the last Argument of Kings tournament. This round, I'll have Stavro from Parabellum Games co-commenting with me on the match. Once he gets over here, we'll have him say hi. Now in this round, we are playing the scenario head-to-head. Just scenario 10 from the organized play packet. So in this, I'm losing my voice. We've been streaming too long. In this scenario, there are two 6-inch objective zones and one 9-inch objective zone. The players will score points as follows. You'll get 3 victory points for each 9-inch objective zone they're seizing, which there's only one. They get 4 victory points if they're seizing the objective zone opposite their edge of the board on the 6-inch zones. And 2 victory points for slaying the enemy warlord this round. There are also victory points available for killing enemy characters and for destroying enemy regiments. So once again, we're going to have a pretty points-heavy match. Should be a fun time.
Awesome.
And Stavro is here now, so we'll have him say hi real quick.
Hello, everybody. First time doing this. Be patient.
This should prove to be a pretty fun match. It is a mirror match between Spires. I have no clue what their lists look like yet. I was not provided with any printed copies, so we'll just see as the match goes along. Oh, I do have a printed copy.
Thank you. They're an eclectic.
Thank you.
They are an eclectic mishmash of some of the best units in the Spire roster.
So it looks like we have Lineage Highborn, Avatara, Incarnate Sentinels for our first warband in this army. Then we have High Clone Executor with Vanguard Clones, Bound Clones, Vanguard Clone Infiltrators, and Brute Drones. And his third warband is a Ferromancer with Strikes and Brute Drones, which means that Ferromancer's got to have the upgrade to make him into a Brute. And that was Ben's list.
Yep.
And then it looks like Carl is taking a Ferromancer. He's got 2 units of Strikes, 2 units of Brute Drones for his first warband. Then he has a Ferromancer with Force-Grown Drones, Onslaught Drones, and 2 units of Brute Drones. And then a third warband that has a High Clone Executor with Force-Grown Drones and Marksman Clones. 2 very interesting Spires lists.
And you do notice the preponderance of the Brute Drones that have been pushed up in effectiveness due to the regenerate that they get from the Warlord now. And it makes it a very tough, like it's a unit you have to wipe out. If you have it 1 wound and broken, it can swing after the Ferromancer comes, rallies them, heals them, makes them strike. You can have 10 attacks coming your way. So it's a unit that you have to wipe out entirely. And it's not easy to do with just the pile of flesh that they are.
Right, yeah, he did take a Ferromancer Warlord. That's going to be fun. The healing brutes is quite a bit of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how these 2 lists face off. They're both leaning towards the kind of brute elite build for Spires, which is pretty fun.
And it'll be interesting. Normally you'd expect to see 2 sort of column approaches, straight at 9 and trying to break through the objectives on the other side. But they're actually fast enough that you can see some interesting maneuvers rather than a head-on smash. How are they on lights?
There are no lights that I can see in Ben's list.
But here you see Carl has 11 Force-Grown Drones. He's got the come at me monstrosity of the drone brick.
Oh, he is taking a huge brick. That's going to be fun.
That's actually going to, that can free up a lot of his army to push, because it would take a very concerted effort to get rid of that unit. And since it's light, it's going to get on the objective. It's going to have the scoring character. And at 11, is it big enough to take up the entire area?
At 11 stands, depending on how he has them set up, he's going to be a block of, he could go 4 wide and 3 deep.
And 3 deep. So 4,
so
4,
that
3,
would be enough to cover up most of the 9-inch
thing,
zone.
and that way he could edge out most of the brute bases, letting him contest it, or at least get rid of them and see what he. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, and because they're light, they might make it there in time, and maybe even just keep him off it entirely. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Well, they've shaken hands and they're ready to go. They're rolling for reinforcements.
Yep. So there's only the strix from Ben.
Yep, Ben has strikes.
And then Carl has 2 strikes and the large brick. We can assume the large brick should come on. But there is a lot of minutia to how this army plays when the characters activate, the abilities that they use, the sequencing. I gotta admit, I always felt spires are going to be a challenge to balance. Their army structure is such that they're like on a pyramid. A little bit too much, and they're way too good. A little bit under, and they're not even remotely good enough. So I understand that everybody has a similar, but I think that the spires in particular, due to the specialized nature of their units, will have this more than most. So they will unfortunately be one of those armies I feel that will always wobble in effectiveness from update to update. If we ever manage to nail it, I'll be very, very proud.
Well, if nothing else, they'll always at least be really fun to play against.
Yep.
I think Spires are one of my favorite armies to fight against.
Because you get to do things against them. It's not like Duegon, where on occasion you can bounce off of them, or the Wadrun who suddenly show up out of nowhere with a dino, and you're like, how did that happen with your triple activation? You get to kill. They get to fight back. It's a very interactive game, and that's what usually happens when you have a sort of casualties don't matter mentality when you design an army. You know, casualties don't matter, and so you see a lot of units engaging, dying, chaos on the battlefield, which is fun. It's one of the most challenging archetypes is that of the, for example, the glass cannon army, because it's one of those armies that by design only lets one player have fun. I either dealt enough damage to you that my army is now very effective and you have very little left, or I didn't, and now my army feels like a wet tissue. So only one of the 2 players is having fun. Whereas with Spires, you're always having fun because you're always getting rid of things. Although it can be frustrating, their healing could be frustrating. Before it was toned down.
Yeah. So it looks like both players went for the same tactic right off the bat. They both played their character cards first so that they'd get to delay long enough to see what their opponents were going to do.
Yep.
What's the height on this?
Slightly shorter than a Tontor. That's accurate.
I like how he's painted his strikes there. He's done them in a bronze color and then given them the verdigris rust effect going on. So they look like they're
they're
almost like
metallic
automatons.
and automata, yeah. Is it me?
They both say they're on. You got audio issues? Oh, okay. Somebody
Up.
else had us muted, not us.
Okay. Yep.
Looks like there's the block coming onto
There
the
it
board.
is. Yeah, and that is what I would have done probably. It's the expected play and the expected counter response. At least for me, I would definitely try to occupy that main thing with my brick, and in order to stop that, I would deploy my streaks as far forward and as quickly as possible to delay him, to prevent him from doing a double march. Possibly no, they don't have a way of triple, do they?
The Force Groans?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I'm
No.
not familiar with one.
But again, because they're mostly brutes and spires, both armies are quite mobile despite not having cavalry. So it feels like the battle will be decided on the A and B front, and then what's maybe some forces, whoever gets the upper hand can peel something off. But they don't actually need to peel anything off because you gain more victory points for holding your opponents.
Yeah,
So it'll be interesting.
The layout of the terrain is going to make it interesting too, because when I set this board, I made it so there was a impassable piece of terrain between the two objectives. So they're going to have to go around on two flanks to get to those objectives.
And if that takes too long, the entire thing might come down to did you commit the right amount of troops to each flank? I know that terrain always makes games difficult, doesn't let you do what you want, but that's exactly what makes battles interesting.
Oh yeah, I love putting lots of terrain on Conquest tables. It makes for some very exciting gameplay, brings a lot of tactical depth to the game.
Yep.
Interesting. So he's committing all of his drones to that side of the battlefield.
Oh, it's a secondary unit. I hadn't spotted that when we went through the list. Oblivious.
It's connected to his other Ferromancer.
No, here they are. Yeah, here we go. A small 3-man unit. Oh my god. It's going to be interesting. That is actually something that 3D terrain is gorgeous, but 2D terrain is so much more effective. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the 3D terrain always has a little root or base. I'm torn whether it should be a physical base that you can print as well, or it should just be a PDF that you can print onto a thin plastic card or paper. And Rolo actually had the very good idea. Daniel had the very good idea of that could also list the effects, so you can lift the terrain to see what actual gameplay effects it has.
I know underneath. I personally would favor having an actual physical base to it, just from a modeling perspective.
It's one of those things where you have to balance the coolness of it versus the practicality.
I know in the tournaments I've run so far, having the 3D elements be removable has been very well received.
No, it has to. Yeah, I get that. Otherwise, it's a complex environment. It's changing all the time. Players are trying their best to outwit their opponent who's in front of them. So you, who designed this 5 years ago, are guaranteed to be outwitted, and they're going to come up with things you never thought of. So the more flexibility you allow the players, the more room to maneuver, the more freedom in their play, the better.
So we're in round 2 now, and they are rolling for reinforcements.
So apparently, so 1 unit of brute drones and 1 unit of marksmen is the reinforcements.
Yep, and then I didn't catch what
I didn't catch what Ben
was bringing.
This is one of those odd matchups where your units showing up later could actually be could be beneficial. If your opponent overcommits to an area, you could deny it. Or if you catch a mistake or he spikes a roll and you're suffering, maybe you could bolster something.
Now I'm curious to see if they go for the character delay tactic again with their command stacks. Try to delay so that they force their opponent to get onto the board so they can do just that.
Exactly that. It's a little bit harder with Aspires because the characters are so intrinsic to the gameplay that you've got to be very careful. It's not as easy as, say, an Imperial officer or a Konungir whose main, let's call it, the main assets he brings onto the battlefield are either his passive rules or his sheer combat potential. Here it's about his interaction with the units, and timing his activation precisely is very important. So it's not as easy. Maybe if they have Vanguard executors, I think Carl has one. Pharaoh, and High Clone Executor. Here you go.
Yeah, both players appear to have at least one High Clone Executor floating around.
So you see a similar philosophy in the design of both armies with a different choice. Ben went more quality, and Carl went for the sheer mass of drones, which is, it demands a response. I mean, when it sits on an objective and completely occludes it. Another interesting play, now that I think about it in hindsight, would be put the drones on your objective, everything else on the small objective, right? Make sure your opponent can never claim it, and well, not the entirety, but a stupendous amount of your army onto the contested objective. What is it called? Objective?
The 9-inch zone? Or
yeah, the 9-inch zone. So let's
Okay.
call it C, the big objective, even though it gives a few points. And that way, it takes a ridiculous amount of resources to chew through 12 Force-grown drones who are healing, who are what is it? Where they get the aura of death, and they give you aura of death, and you're exploding because you're. It takes a satanic amount of resources to cut through them, and maybe you use that to dominate this flank and then try to push into the other one before. It's going to be interesting. But right now, what we're seeing
Decay.
is
Decay is the word you're looking for.
But they have a decay that then they can transmit to their opponents through
Yeah.
the aura of death. Yeah, being able to give your opponents decay and then make them roll it several times was in the earlier iterations of the game. We were told rather succinctly by our players that they did not enjoy that mechanic. We listened. So we see Ben is committing most of his forces. What happened? Oh. No, okay, he's not going for overloading one flank. He is reinforcing the central one as well.
Well, I think he knows he's got to do something to chew through all those drones.
It's going to take more than 3 Avatara.
Well, we'll see what else he throws. I mean, he has quite a few options in his list.
Yes.
Like, he has 2 different units of Avatara. He has a unit of Incarnate Sentinels.
He has the Incarnate Sentinels.
And they have 5 stands, so that one should be pretty fun.
And now at Clash 3, they're no longer tied to superior creations. They can freelance in other warbands. They're not linked to specifically a superior creations army, which makes them much more versatile.
Looks like he's going to counter by throwing some drones, brute drones down there.
I think the way this is going, it's going to come down to who judges the resources that each flank needs.
Probably can't tell when we play each other a lot.
Yeah. And then, of course, the dice.
It's kind of funny that this is another match of two locals, fighting each other, two people that always fight. 'Cause
Yep.
That's what the last game was. Last game was two people from the same community fighting.
We specifically, the app actually has a feature to prevent this, at
But
least
only
for
the
the
first
first
round.
round. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. After that, you can't. I mean, it's a tournament. It'll come down to the wins.
It's interesting to observe how the different player-based communities that come together for these events tend to all filter into the same area of the rankings. So they end up always fighting each other.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, the truth is, when you play against better players than you, you get better quickly. It's one of the most difficult issues that comes up very often for us is when people say, this army is completely imbalanced. And, we take this seriously, so we look into it. And it comes down to a player who comes from another board game or another war game, and they don't adapt to the mentality of our game. How, for example, a unit, no matter how terrifying, there is that gap between its activations that it can be pounded upon and be unable to return.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like many other games that when they swing at you, you can swing back. So you're guaranteed to cause damage. I saw a game in which Stidix basically ran off with the game because the flanks were uncovered, and 70% of the damage of the game was caused by Stidix. And if you look at that result in isolation, oh my God, Stidix are broken.
Yeah.
And yet you look at their stats and you realize, wait, there's a deeper story, and I am very happy about it. I worry about it a little bit because it can be very daunting for people coming in, and growth is everything for the communities. For us, the most important thing is growing the community so that I get rid of but I have nobody to play with. Because I get I love the lore. Recently, with our new sculpts, we're getting I love the miniatures. But that one pervasive argument that we always hear is, but who am I going to play against? So growth is critical to us to eliminate that as a factor. And I worry that maybe we overshot and we made it, and I know it sounds arrogant, but I don't mean it arrogantly. It is a very skill-based game. The adding timing to your every decision adds one layer of complexity that a lot of other games don't have. They have timing, absolutely. I'm not saying that they're easy. It's just that this has that additional level of complexity.
Yeah. Yeah, I see
And
what you're saying.
it makes it very daunting to new players. So what I find interesting is that the Stidix did not move up immediately. I would have moved them up immediately to try to keep the force-grown drones off the objective.
Well, there they go.
There they go.
charging
They're
in.
going now. But I
But they
think a
still
simple
allowed-
clash move is going to be enough to get rid of them.
And I can't really see for sure from here, but it looks like that Fairmancer, or Executor, sorry, probably got his corner of his base over the objective.
Yeah. Oh no. Almost
Yeah.
certainly. Almost
So-
certainly. That is not a mistake I'd expect players of this caliber to make. And the issue here is that Stidix are very, very effective. So we see a couple of hits. What? We see 4 hits. 5. Oh no, they're Clash 2 inspired. So they go to 5.
Okay, we do one. Yep.
Oh wow.
And then I auto pass the resolve. Yes.
Heroic heroic
those-
defense by
Those
the
drones aren't going anywhere.
no. No, but the issue is the Stidix. It only takes 10 hits to wipe out the unit because the resolve is so low.
Yeah.
So it should very easily be a clash move, and then suddenly the entire objective. Maybe not the entire. He won't quite have the movement, but it's going to be difficult.
I've fought against a lot of strikes. It's pretty common in our local community to see people run 2 blocks of 6 strikes, just to go up and not only have that ability to contest stuff early on in the game, but also have the damage output from that many strikes to be able to actually clear stuff early in the game.
It is one of those things that you have to keep a close eye on the effectiveness of units. Strix is one of those that we're looking at. And it comes down to their clash.
Yeah, they feel like they're right on that threshold where if a person really wanted to, they could spam them and have them be really good. But if you do too much to them, they could also be really bad. Like they're right on that threshold where they could go either way.
It's a delicate balance. Every time I come to a tournament, I give Leo my observations. And what's fascinating is hearing from him. I'm like, so Old Dominion have this complaint about their lights. And he's like, oh yeah, we fix it. Oh, how? He's like, yeah, we fix the Legionnaires. I'm like, what do the Legionnaires have to do with the price of fish? And he's like, oh no, because you see, we fix the Legionnaires, and then that does this, and then that does that, which frees up this, which suddenly, I'm like, ah. It was a very tough call at the time. But when we were launching the game, way back when, I realized I could not be actively involved with the rules design because I was too passionate about it, and I wanted something that other people liked, not something that I liked. So I am, to keep that level of disinterest, and to, not disinterest, wrong word, non-engagement, I've had to be pretty brutal with my interaction with the game. Because I see it at tournaments. I see units that are too powerful or too weak or that are not thematically appropriate, and I get all like grumpy. But the whole point is the game plays well, right? And so long as the unit doesn't betray its main purpose, and the army doesn't betray its main purpose and fluff, I have to live with it. There's very much a storyteller in me that is very avid.
Well, I have to say, I love the way that Conquest rules do reflect the fluff as well as they do. Like,
that was critical.
They might not be all the way to where you'd want them to be on all units, but when you build an army in this game, you can feel like there's a clear theme behind these rules and why the units have them.
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is...
So he's trying to line up his charge
for the counter charge,
while also getting in range to shoot some things.
Again, statics are incredibly vulnerable to anything, really anything. But they're fast enough that if you use them properly, you can flank, clash, after your opponent has done something or activated that unit, which leaves them free next round. If they go first, guess what? They can clash again, and then you get very angry with them. You swing back. You probably overkill them, which hurts you further from their lethal demise. But that, what you mentioned before regarding, I always felt it was very important that when you play a battle on the table, the rules are realistic enough that what you create is a beautiful narrative, right? I was told recently about a Frost Jotnar that was left with 1 wound, and still, because of the timing of activations, managed to take down 2 Mountain Jotnar, right? That kind of thing, my storytelling brain immediately grabs it, you know, and I'm envisioning this like bloodied, arrogant, angry Ice Jotnar who's like, no, this is not how it ends, right?
Yeah.
And I live for that in war games, like those awesome epic moments. And they only happen if the armies play the way you look at them and you believe they should.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very big factor. And it's one of the things that you have to balance between when you're designing an army. Certain units you go looks first, right? You design them because they're emblematic of the army. But then others you've got to let the game developers cover the holes or create the holes, because what an army doesn't have is actually more iconic than what it does well, as weird as it sounds. Okay. So three mediums come in.
That probably means all the brutes are on the
Yep.
board this round, because he's still got those incarnate sentinels. He has he's got some Vanguard clones that still need to come
Where
on
those
as well.
incarnate sentinels come is going to be a very big decision.
I'm excited to see how he's painted his incarnate sentinels. If they're similar to his brutes, they're going to look amazing.
Yep.
I really love that paint job he's done.
It's very effective. And we can see that the Vanguard clones have not yet shot because aesthetics are still on the table.
Yeah, I think they actually pulled back just a little bit so that they would be out of the threat range for a charge. So they kind of played chicken a little bit. And
Yep. So I think the plan there is forcing a move charge, to which he can then counter charge and wipe, freeing his Vanguard clone infiltrators to do what they do very, very, very well.
it's interesting to see that he didn't move his strikes at all. He's left them there.
They attempted a charge. They needed a 6.
Oh, I see. So I guess they attempted a charge and failed it.
Fair enough.
Those where if I make it, I basically just get that unit for free probably, and if I fail it, nothing bad really happens because they're not messing anything up by failing that.
Yeah, interesting. So would the mics pick that up from
No,
that
the
distance?
mics will not pick up what the
Okay.
players are saying to us.
So we just had a chat with Carl, and he attempted a long bomb charge with aesthetics, which, if he had succeeded, as he says, would have given him the Vanguard clone infiltrators basically for free, because they're also made of tissue paper. And if he failed because they weren't blocking anything, it was no great loss. But yeah, again, it's going to come down to, you can see a lot of thinking going on.
A lot of pre-measuring to try
Yep.
and plan out their tactics very carefully.
Okay, yeah, this is where the game starts heating up.
There's a lot of cards on the table this round. They've got a lot of units for both sides.
Ben just moved a unit to the top of his stack. Reconsidered something. The most important part of the game is the command phase. This is the phase that separates the veterans from the beginners. What you do once you're on the table is determined by what you can do. In other words, how the units have moved. So if you're able to telegraph your opponent well enough, you can see the glaring gaps in each player's army. Will it be there when the unit you need to activate will activate? It's one of the most common mistakes I see with, you would call them Death Star units. People are used to Death Star units sort of doing their job on their own.
Mm-hmm.
In Conquest, when you have a unit like that, your entire army needs to work so that that unit can do what it needs to do when it needs to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the number of times I've seen 6-man chunks of Thunder Riders charged by a chaff unit on the flank, who goes like, "Oh, that beautifully timed famine charge that you were working on." No. Again, that's what separates the veteran and the great commanders from the guys who are starting out and they're learning. It is an entire new game within a game that currently doesn't exist in any other mass battle system.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes getting used to, and the people who embrace it quickly thrive. But again, it adds to that difficulty of learning the game and understanding that you have to get rid of a lot of ideas on how it should work.
Yeah. The fact that this command phase has gone as long as it has tells you just how important it is to this round of the game.
Early on in the rules, there was actually the player who finishes his command stack first has the +1.
Oh.
To encourage and to prevent these long, drawn-out phases.
Yeah.
But we saw very quickly the shenanigans that would ensue, and we're like, we love the idea, but...
It would certainly, like, I know, you know, it becomes hard to measure, like, oh, who actually got their command stack done first.
Exactly. That's part of the shenanigans. Like, slam on the table.
And I've actually played the game before shuffling my deck. Just shuffle it and throw it down. And that's probably what I would do if that got me the advantage to go first. I would just throw
But
the
then
cards
you wouldn't
down.
be certain that your key unit, that you're so desperate for that priority, you wouldn't be sure it's on top.
That's true.
But basically what ended up happening, there was a lot of, in the beginning, it was, okay, you had to balance it because the +1 can be critical for that free first move. But again, mistakes hurt.
Okay, looks like Ben is ready to commit to his tactics.
Maybe the problem of knowing your opponent too well.
You overthink it.
Yeah.
You overthink how well you know
You
him.
second guess him, and then you're second guessing yourself.
Okay, we got a 3 by Ben and a 4. Okay.
Okay, Vanguard clone infiltrators.
clones.
He should not be in range.
No, I think he's going to have to... He's either
Nope.
going to move up or he's going to
No, he's going to block.
reposition to try and expose the flank on anything that charges them.
That makes me think he's going to commit most of his forces to the big objective.
Oh, even better, he's trying to make that that rear flank exposed to make it more enticing for those strikes to come up. Further guarantee the effectiveness of the charge.
Oh yeah, the Executor was in range. Because he has a higher range than the rest of the unit, correct?
So Vanguard clone infiltrators have 14-inch range, and the high clone executor, he's also 14
also.
inches, so they're the same range.
Ben, you mind walking us through what you just did there?
So I formed formation.
There we go.
2 stands in range and turn away from them so I can shoot out of my back with this fluid formation allows me to fire from any arm.
Okay.
Okay.
One close stand ECI and the high cone executor, and then I walked away.
Fair
Okay.
enough. There we go.
All the damage back, but sometimes you can spike plus.
Okay. So what he said was that he used his fluid formation to allow him to get more stands on the front row. He then turned the models around so they're facing away, but fluid formation allows them to still shoot out of the backside.
Yep.
So he was still able to shoot. And then he was able to march away.
Yeah. He doesn't expect it to be a high impact maneuver because the Cityx will heal, but if he had spiked the roll. It was free shots. Again, there's no need to there's no need to seize your objectives because it gives you no points. You have to seize your opponents. It'd be interesting to see a far flanking unit or something. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. I wonder if the Avatara will... I don't know. I don't know.
Ah, the joys of speculation.
Yep.
The brute drones, huh?
So he pre-measured that to make sure his brutes could move all the way over his unit.
Oh, but is he within an inch of that terrain piece is the question.
If he isn't, he can shift away. There he is. He's making that small shift. I always hated those, like, 1 inch away from the terrain rules, but they're so important for interaction. Otherwise, it gets so complicated and so messy.
It makes sense to have them.
Yeah, but sometimes it leads to scenarios that are very gamey and not very realistic. But you've got to strike a balance. When you're designing rules, you've got to strike a balance between them. So the first unit of brute drones moved up. There's nothing on that side of the table that can hurt them enough that they can't recover with a little bit of help from the Ferromancer.
Oh, I see he's bringing his Avatar on from the reinforcement line.
There we go. We see that far flank move. So Ben has forces, obviously, that will allow him to counter that deployment, but there we go. We're starting to see aggression. The Avatara came in as far forward as Ben could bring them, and then move forward. They could touch the objective in one activation. And if they're deadlocked on the other objective, that one's going to be the tiebreaker. And I have not broken anything yet. This is good.
Yet. Game's not over yet either, so there's still time.
This is a distressingly common occurrence. Okay. So Carl's bringing forward here his response, checking out the charge range. And,
This is
interesting.
okay.
Onslaught drones. 3 stands.
So he might just be playing for the send them over there to distract those Avatara, buy him time to get something else up there.
Possibly. I mean, on their own, they're no more than a road bump. Again, the careful angling.
Yep, he's trying to bait a charge so that he can expose the flank for something else.
Very, very common, simple, and yet underused tactic.
Hey, I can't tell you how many new players I talk to that when you tell them, oh, just set your guys up diagonal, and it just blows their minds at how much easier it makes getting into the flank.
Yep. It is, to those people who used to be Warhammer Fantasy veterans, it was the monstrous power of light cavalry where it never made its points back, but it won you or lost you the game. And that's what lights should be and should do. On that flank, we saw no lights deployed, so now what we're seeing is medium units attempting to fulfill the same goal. I am noticing fewer and fewer lights being brought by players.
Some of
tournament.
that I could attribute to just how cool some of the heavy options are nowadays. Like, there are so many cool monsters that I know, at least in my community, I know the Utah community as well, a lot of players are sacrificing good lights so they can take cool heavies, because heavies are cool. You know, Tauntors and Siegebreaker Behemoths are showing up all over
Good
the
for
place.
narrative, harder
much.
for hard competitive play.
It did bring up an interesting situation. I know in the Utah community, they had a Nords list that was taking, you know, this pretty standard, a couple Jotnars, but they took a bunch of lights, and they sent me the list, and they're like, is this list, you know, busted because it keeps winning all the games locally? And when we broke it down, what it really turned into was that it was just that nobody else in the community was taking lights, and so all the board control was always going to this Nords player.
They don't make
And-
their points back. They will not kill things, but they will win you the game.
Yep. You have to build a fairly balanced list. Now, as an old Dominion player, I struggle with that because the lights that we do have, I don't like.
Yes, I know,
Yeah.
I know. You're getting both of your competitive lights. You're getting them. Daryl might kill me for saying that, but you're getting them quickly.
Well, we knew they'd be coming sooner or later.
But yeah, the Vanguard on the Legionnaires was an attempt to alleviate this.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I love Keres and Mori. Nope, nothing went wrong.
See, for me, I thematically don't care for the Kiris and the Moroi, so I just don't take them.
No, I get that. I get that. But then it gets harder to complain because you have lights. You just don't want to use those lights.
And I also missed out on when they were good. Like the Kiris were really good at first when the army launched,
Yeah.
and now they've been toned down to where they're kind of on par with everyone else.
The trick I have found with many of these units is what happens when you overtune the unit. So I had somebody, again, I've seen somebody field 6 of them and continuously regenerate them from very early on in the game because their lights are suffering casualties, and he's healing them from very early on, and his dark power
Just
hit
goes
a
crazy.
turn earlier, which makes a difference. Hitting those breakpoints a turn early can make a very big difference. On the other hand, I feel he went a little bit overboard and the rest of his army lacked a little bit of punch. But I'm sure there's a happy medium in between where you get to generate dark power, regenerating those units from turn 1. Definitely turn 2. And it can make a big, big impact because you hit those dark power breakpoints, and a lot of your units become downright scary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Avatar are moving. Conservative move. Interesting. The Vanguard clones are mediums. Vanguard clones, medium. The issue is there's only 6 stands there. I don't know. One round of combat. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see who manages to hold that objective.
Yeah, this is definitely this side of the board over here is very interesting.
A lot depends on where Ben brings his incarnate sentinels. Because
Yeah, we finally get to see a charge. Oh, he failed the first roll. He's got unstoppable.
that was not a good roll. It was
Nope.
a slightly better
That
roll,
is a
but
failed
no.
charge. That is unfortunate.
Yep. Because
'Cause
that would have.
probably means that depending on who goes first next turn, those brute drones might be gone.
Yeah. And it would also have guaranteed that the Avatara. But it's a long charge. Not that long.
Now for the Avatar, it's probably only a 2 or 3 inch charge at this point.
Oh no, at this point, no, it's a guaranteed. No, I was, but they can no longer make it into the flank of the force-grown drones. I don't think the gap is big enough to allow 3 models to wheel through. Huh. Huh.
Hard choices everywhere.
Mm. And so what did he flip over? Okay, here we go. Now we see where he commits with the Incarnate Sentinel. This will be very, very, very telling. Does he go for the big objective? He's going for the big objective.
And he's going in a wide row of them. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yep. So we just had heard Ben say that you're 4 wide, so I'll go 6, trying to maximize the amount of damage that he can do, because that is a very difficult brick to chew through. So it'll be interesting. It will be interesting to see.
So see, now the interesting thing, technically, if he wanted to, he's not required to clash. The drones are not required to clash against those strikes. If they never wanted to deal with the Incarnate Sentinels, they could just never attack the strikes and just sit there. I mean, they wouldn't be scoring the objective.
Well, he would for 1 round. Exactly. Yeah, the Aura of Death is more than enough to take care of them. The issue then... Yep. Yeah. Again, Ben's now commenting how the Cityx, which can normally be incredibly disruptive against an MSU and hefty chunky list like the one that he's fighting, Cityx lose a certain amount of their effectiveness. So he basically relegated to speed blocks to allow his Incarnate Sentinels the time to get there. So interesting. And now what? A lot will come down to those activations, because the Aura of Death. What did he say? 16?
Yeah, he said it was going to take 16.
Yep.
So that means they
That
are
will
Aura
sting.
of Death 4, so each stand's doing 4.
Yeah. That'll sting even Sentinels. And there we go.
When in doubt, just mark with dice where the front of the stands are. The hill is made worse by the fact there's also a slant in the table right there.
Yeah, no, I see that slant.
Otherwise, it would be quite bearable.
No ferromantic override. Interesting. Okay. So he chose not to use the override, which means Ben's going to get the 3 points. Sorry, Carl's going to get the 3 points for the objective. Although the lights contest him, don't they?
They do, because there are only 3 stands Or 2 stands touching from each unit. So,
Yeah.
at least until the Strix are dead. Once
Yeah,
the
well,
Strix
yeah,
are
of
dead,
course.
then there's no contesting it.
True enough. Nope, he's giving up those victory points. We'll see if the gamble's worth it. I have an allergy, an inbuilt allergy to giving up victory points. But it would have left him vulnerable to a charge from the brutes, which would have kept him. He's going to need time to chew through that block. So any round that Carl's able to keep him off that big force of drones would cost. Now, on the other hand, if you're scoring through those rounds, you don't really care. And the final unit of brutes. Thunder onto the field in the center. I get the logic. They can go left or right from that position, depending on how the battle swings and what the dice gods say. The trick, though, is going to be making sure that they don't get locked up back there. Because if they do, they're going to immobilize, or they're going to delay by at least half an activation the units behind them as they reform. So what we just saw, except you didn't see anything, was the Aesthetics tried to activate, died to the overwhelming aura of death, exploded in a grisly shower of bones and toxic chemicals, and then inflicted hits back on the Force-grown drones.
Nice part is now he gets to activate his next regiment. So, depending on what he had planned.
No, it's
Nope,
brute
it's
drones.
different
No,
kind of
because the Avatara already activated.
Yep.
And the other guys came. He just couldn't delay that activation any further. If he could, he would have loved it. Remove the block, and then you charge. Then he could activate the unit immediately behind them. Oh, there we go. We see the central unit of brutes shifting their attention. So now it becomes a question of how quickly can Carl, his killing power, Ben has a hell of a lot more on the, do not underestimate that big brick. It's terrifying. But that's 6 Incarnate Sentinel, 4 Brutes, and the Avatara. Their combined efforts will severely punish that brick faster than it can be healed and it can be regenerated.
I agree.
That's why you notice the Ferromancer safely ensconced in the background when and the clone executor is at the front. I think that the game just took shape. Let's say the way it's going to go. You know, the dice have been cast. Simply because it would take him so long, as you said, to walk around that central objective. It's committed. Now it's going to be a question of what happens in this objective. And while I like the big block, it only has one scoring stand in it.
Yeah. So all it takes is one of their units getting on the objective first,
Yeah.
and he won't be able to score.
He
that
won't be
one.
able to score it until that unit is dead, and I'm not sure he has the killing power.
Now the trade-off is that means it might come down to who goes first next round, because if those drones get to go first, they might be able to block him off the objective.
It's going to be hard to block him off all of it. Because again, only 2 stands, right?
Yes.
Have to touch it. And that outscores a single character stand. Now in hindsight,
He can block off all except for the side closest to the edge of the table.
yeah.
And that's where his brute drones are going to have to get up there first.
Take on
and
the
block
Avatara
the Avatar
and
up.
block the Avatara.
Should have rolled them on camera.
Yes.
I think
So what we just saw was the activation of the Marksman clone, who are doing arcing fire into, I assume, the Avatara? Yes, the Avatara. Again, those brutes are going to need all the help they can to fend those off. But if they're able... There you go. And the Force-grown drones activate. Oh, look at that.
They're back up and running around again.
Yes, anybody who's played Spires knows and hates that.
Yeah.
The concept was always this unending tide of bodies that the Ferromancer can call on from the Underspire. It's not so much healing, is that there's so many more where that came from.
We've discussed within our group that we want to make a terrain piece for the Spires. Because you've mentioned in the lore that they bring these spawning vats with them, like that are growing the drones as they march to battle. It'd be cool to have a terrain piece that's one of those that's been destroyed, and the drones are spilling out over the ground. And
that would be very good. So now that we've... Oh, so what you see there on the table, I don't know if they've mentioned it, it's our a preview of our STL terrain. There, see, Daryl, I can sell things from time to time. I remember. The upcoming one is after this one. Again, these are all plans, guys, so please be lenient. Plans change. Things go wrong, invariably, always, way too often. But the plan is that the next piece of terrain is actually going to be Spire. And the best thing we could think of, I was going to go for something boring. I was going to go for Spire Outpost and some roots and like a spawning pool and like, okay. And then Cosadino, our lead writer, he's like, dude, we should make it a crashed Spire ship.
oh, okay.
Because now everybody has a reason to want to plunder that and fight around it. And suddenly it's, yeah, technically a Spire, but you can have Nords and 100 Kingdoms fighting over it as well.
Okay.
Plus the sheer aesthetics of it, finally getting one of these things drawn out to then get drawn. I love the design process because I got to tell my artists, draw it out how it would be pristine. Like, you know, that's more of a leisure craft. I want more of a heavy transport one. And then we have to draw it crashed and destroyed. So we're not going to have the entire ship because these things are massive.
Yeah.
But 3 or 4 pieces of it and how they've broken out over the battlefield should be very, very impressive sight.
That's going to be really cool to see.
We're seeing a reform. Is he going to try to block off the entire thing? That might be the plan. He might be trying. He reformed 5 wide. But unless there is Spire shenanigans that make that a free reform, he's not going to have the move. Yep. So then it's not an attempt to block off the objective. I guess it's an attempt to bring more Aura of Death into play.
That's what it looks like. Now, for anybody watching that's wondering why he pulled stands from the back all the way to the front, think of it as the front stands stepped aside so more ranks could move up. And he just, for simplicity of time, just pulled those stands and put them where they would end up. So it's not that those stands moved further than their move distance. We just didn't map out every stand's movement.
Ah, yes. And the sticks activate, regenerate kicks in. They ignore the pot shots. Again, think of it, an unending cloud of these obnoxious things cawing over the battlefield. And as they're more, so that's a march charge. You're going nowhere fast.
It's a smart move. Tie him up, delay that block of brutes from moving forward.
Personally, I would have been more partial to a move and no charge.
Try and pull the brutes forward more, maybe.
Basically position myself in such a way that if he charged me, because he had to break through, he would be in an even less advantageous position because I had that type of facing.
Do an angle where he's angled towards the smaller buildings, so when the brutes come in, their flank
they
on
would
this
clip
side
exactly.
is exposed for the other brutes to countercharge.
But again, this is all A, talking calmly from the sidelines, and B, I am sure any one of these two players would kick my ass in an actual game. So do take everything with like a bucket of salt.
I certainly see value in just playing purely based on just trying to keep them away from being close enough to even touch that objective.
Yeah.
So he might just be going for just keep them as far away as possible.
You can't. So the far objective, the far side looks evenly matched, because the onslaught drones, unless they're heavily affected or influenced by, buffed by a unit, no match for the Avatara. The Styrix can cause casualties due to the due to the lethal demise. You can't underestimate the sheer lethality of the Vanguard clone infiltrators that he has over there. One round of optimal shooting, and that is a lot of damage. It's interesting. You have to win. 3-0 the score.
I was just verifying that the scores were all up to date.
Yep, that clipping by the heroic Vanguard clone executor. So that's risky. That not use of the ferromantic overdrive means that Ben is committed to wiping out at unit because he has to be able to score that objective.
Yeah. The ferromantic overdrive would have meant that his Sentinels could have potentially gotten charged, because maybe instead of reforming those drones, he would have just charged them in.
Yes, but he would have had all those bodies on the objective.
That's true.
He would have contested. He would have scored it this round, and that objective would be null, and it would come down to the other one. So he'd be ahead 3 points, and the pressure would be on Carl to respond. That far flank is very evenly matched. A lot will come down to this flank. And as I said, there is more lethal power here on the side of Ben. So it would have forced the issue. I don't know. I like making my opponent be the one who has to act.
Mm-hmm.
And the warlords are...
So it's the Lineage Highborn for Ben. Lineage Highborn's in the middle of the Sentinels. And then it's a Ferromancer for the other one, and
Oh boy. Hold on. Again, the command phase, a lot of thinking. It's a lot of cards, it's a lot of difficult interactions, and it's a lot of important decisions that have to be taken this round. That's why I like simple plans. It's hard to get confused or carried away if your plan is simple. If it's very complex, it's easy when you're this calm, spectating, but we're in there, the heat of the moment, rolling dice, wanting to get rid of a unit that's annoying you. It's easy to make a mistake and reprioritize.
Yeah.
So I like simple plans. You know the story, probably apocryphal, about Napoleon's corporal?
I think so.
So he would always have, in all of his general staff meetings when he was going over the battle plans for a battle, he would always have a corporal, right, who was a trooper. Promoted trooper, but he wasn't trained, he wasn't educated, he didn't go to a military academy. And at the end of the plan, he would ask the corporal, do you get what we're doing? You don't have to agree or disagree. You have to understand what we're doing and why. And if the answer was no, he'd be like, okay, that plan's too complicated, let's go again. Let's try something simpler. It's keep it simple. It's very easy in the heat of the moment to get sidetracked.
So he charged the brute drones over on this side.
He made the charge, so he's going to be able to... Okay.
No damage through on the impacts.
Nah, but that's
Now
not the main
Clash
source
is
of
what they're
damage.
here
Yeah.
for. Now it's interesting because he's also, by doing that, he's put the sentinels in a position where they can't just charge through anymore. They're going to have to sidestep before they can do anything.
Yep. And if he's lucky here, he might cause enough damage to take out a stand. Long live flurry. Because I couldn't see the full dice roll, but from where I saw, that was a lot.
7 hits first, and then flurry.
So Flurry got 3 more hits.
3 more
through.
hits. Yep. A little bit below average. Yep, that is definitely enough to bring down 1 stand. But no issues on resolve. But that's 33% of the combat potential of the Avatar gone. Yep. Yep. See, this was a clear priority rush for both players, whoever won that charge. Now, he, of course, has the Avatar on the far side. Oof. Pressure everywhere.
I do like the wedge that he's formed over there, a reverse wedge, so that no matter which one he charges, the other one's going to get him.
Yep. There is a clone executor in. So it's going to be close. A flank from the onslaught can't be ignored by the Avatar. A flank from the Harpies also can't be ignored, because then you're going to have to turn around, punch them. They're going to explode in your face. That's a lot of damage, and then that leaves you with very few stands to contest.
Too bad. That would have been a 6 on that charge roll if it hadn't bounced out of the dice tray.
Still enough. Avatar are deceptively
He
fast.
decided to go with them, huh?
So that's it. He's going. Yep, a small shuffle back to keep his units an inch away. Oh, yes, no, I did the thing where I talked ahead of time. I may have revealed something that I shouldn't have.
Man, I wasn't even paying attention. I'm going to have to go back and watch the stream now.
That's okay, Leo will forgive me. You've been talking nonstop for what, 4 hours now? 6 hours?
Since 10 a.m. this morning.
That'll do it.
Yeah, my voice is just shot by this point.
Okay, here we go. The explosions. 7 lethal hits back.
Oh, and he failed most of those.
Oh no. These sting. And again, oof. Every stand lost here counts. Because there are so few stands that can score on that side. You have 1 on the Vanguard Clone Infiltrators, 3 on the Avatara, 3 on the Brutes, right? That is 3 Brutes I can see there, yeah. So there's only 7 stands. 1 down, that leaves 5. The Avatara are going to get punished by the onslaught drones on the flank. No matter how good you are, a flank charge hurts.
Oh, yeah. Well, it'll be interesting, too, as if those, once those Avatara are gone, he now has a route to get around to that back objective. It's going to take a while. He might not be able to make it in time for it to matter. But
the Vanguard Clone Infiltrators are more than enough to take care of that in a single round of shooting. The issue then becomes the center, because those 2 units of brute drones can easily overpower the damaged brutes that will have to wade through the sticks. So it's going to be a question of time. Unless those Avatara perform heroics.
It's always possible.
Oh no. Yep.
There goes a brute.
So was that a clash? Dear Mother of God, the sticks took down one of the... Yep. The sticks pulled down one of the brutes. Ooh, the far flank is starting to look very dicey for Ben. That means he has to do a very good job on this one. Now, flank charge with the Vanguard clones will again hurt. Will it hurt enough? Because then it becomes Avatara versus the chewy block of death with arcing fire. That is a lot of attacks. That's what Vanguard clones do. Oh, this will sting. $14 hits, no cleave. So because it's a flank charge, he has to re-roll his successful rolls. So this is probably a wipe.
12 damage onto that regiment. That's
but they have 15. And now you'll see the scary part of the brutes. They are broken, down to 2 wounds. But the Ferromancer hasn't activated yet.
That's true.
Okay, he chose not to reinforce. Oh.
He's making the drones scarier so that they can get on the objective and do
Interesting.
something.
My impulse, I don't know if it's right or wrong, would have been to heal up the brutes and then activate them so that their regenerate would have brought a stand with 4 wounds on, and then they could have, but the brutes have already activated, that's why. Ah yes, lethargy, delightful. Oh. So what's going on here is he's shooting the sticks. Now, from shooting, they do not get lethal demise, correct?
No, only against stuff that you're in contact with, as far as I'm aware. And he turned around to face him because he knows it's time to get charged, so he'd rather have the ability to get those successful resolve checks and not have to re-roll them.
Priority next turn is going to be very, very important.
The high clone executor really did most of the work in
Yep.
that shooting attack.
Oh god, yeah. At short range, he's a monstrosity. That should be more than enough to wipe out the unit. So that actually wasn't enough to take them down. That was a good roll. Those were good saves. Evasion 2. Evasion 2. From the unit, yeah, the unit did not roll too well, and the saves. Yeah. But on the other hand, the executor performed very well. But that is very dangerous because it frees up the brutes while keeping. So it frees up Carl's to potentially charge while keeping Ben's locked for 1 activation. Yeah. So here, careful positioning means that if there is a charge, it has to. Yep. So we see as a move charge.
Yep.
Oh.
That's going to be 4 impact hits. Pretty good.
4 impact hits. That's a pretty good roll. That's 2 wounds from the impact, but that's all. There is no clash because he did a move charge. 2 wounds is more than I would have expected from a charge.
fun. With
And
those,
they've already lost one to the sticks.
Yep. Yeah, those drones or brute drones are starting to hurt over there.
So here we go. Now we see the Ferromantic.
It's a good place to use it.
Yep, he is going to wipe out. He's going to wipe out that brute. No, it has to happen. That you cannot let that brute rally, heal, get reinforced. Because his backswing would really, really hurt.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to survive at all. So.
So that was the Ferromantic Override, which basically is a second action for a unit out of sequence when the character is activated. It is the Supremacy, right? No. It's not the Supremacy, it is the... You see what I meant when I'm not very active in my game?
Ferromantic Override is a mutation that the Lineage Highborn can use, and I think... Gotta pull out my phone and...
Here it is.
Nope, that works too.
There we go. Draw your next command card. If the regiment is within 12 inches of the character stand, it acts immediately and may take 2 actions of the same type this round. Clash, clash. They take the... That's drive. Where's overdrive? You're right.
Override's the next...
Yeah. Where is that one? Oh, that would explain
that would
why.
it. And that list doesn't
have
all
the
the special rules. So I'll just open it in the handy dandy Parabella map.
So you go. I'm certain there's people commenting it does this, and they're feeling hot and fuzzy that they know the game better than I do.
Taking a minute for it to open.
Again.
Today.
Lore, I could take you all on, guys. Lore, deadlines, and financials, I could take you all on. Yes. That is it. My sister basically is the one that runs the company. Those are the 3 things I deal with. Actually, and when I say deadlines, I shouldn't say deadlines. I should say release schedule. Oh, here we're...
Ferromantic Override, right? That's what we're looking for?
Yeah. It's that unit acts again.
This draw event can only be... So it is a draw event. Once per battle.
Once per battle. There we go.
And you target a friendly regiment within 6 inches of that character stand. That a regiment may immediately perform a free additional out-of-sequence act, clash, volley, or march action.
There we go. So it's a pseudo supremacy ability, usable once per game. Okay, I'm not sure what we're seeing right now.
I think he's just doing he's just making it so that the stands... Yeah. He's just making the stands look pretty.
Oh, he's aligning them all so that they look forward.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And he was taking them out of place so he could put them all in the stand so he could move them all simultaneously.
I see. That makes sense. Okay. For a second, I thought I heard him say back march, and I'm looking at it, blinking. Because this is not a situation that that would have been a terrible decision.
Smart.
That's going to be...
Declining the clash was really smart in this situation. Because by not clashing, now the Sentinels can't charge.
Can't charge, that is true.
Without reforming first.
So the reform charge caused a few impact hits, whereas he would have wiped out the unit. So now that he knows that one way or another, he got one more round of damage on the Sentinels. At full effectiveness. So now we're doing impact hits for the Sentinels. Again, no clash because it was a reform charge.
Yeah, this is where things are really going to start happening on
Yeah.
this side. Now that the stuff that wants to be engaged is engaged.
Yeah. And the far side.
The far side's interesting. Over on the left flank.
The choice to try to break through the center is interesting. What worries me about that is that it might happen piecemeal, which will allow the Vanguard clones to gun down the units one at a time as they become freed. That's not a situation you want to find yourself in. There's 6 wounds to chew through, but then the Vanguard clones will respond. I don't think the brutes survive that volley. And the second brute unit, I don't know if it's close enough to charge in one go. Because you touch those those clones are gone.
Yeah, that second brute unit's in a position where they're going to have to choose which place is more important to go. They either go mop up what's left of the Incarnate Sentinels after those drones are gone, or they have to go reinforce the center. They won't be able to do both, but
Oh no, I'm almost certain they're coming to the. I think they're piling into the big fight almost certainly.
I think that's what I'm inclined to agree to.
So a unit of Avatar was just activated by Ben. Interesting. Yeah. So I'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay.
I have signs going on.
Yep. Well, Stavro is away for a minute, so I guess it's just me. Although Gianni is sitting here too, so maybe I can convince him to take over.
Somebody has to step up. Yeah. 7. Alright. Avatar Apollo! Sounds about right. Passive. Passive. I think that's enough. Burnout. Pick 1. You must push into me. Yes. Strike me at them. Marksman clones.
Interested to see what the marksman clones do here. They actually have quite a few options.
He told me that the norms are not good enough, and I told him, come on, you're fitting your units.
So it looks like the marksman clones have chosen to march.
No volley into the Avatar. Free and effective.
Now they're going to volley into the Avatara. I'm curious to see if the Avatara actually survive this one. And yes, Ben did shout Avatar power. So I see that was asked in the chat.
All good, boss? I'm like, I can't answer that question.
Well, Stavro has made it back, so you don't have
And
to
I'm
just
back.
listen to me anymore.
So what
And
did I
we're
miss?
almost at the end of the round. So while you were away, the marksman moved up. They
And
fired
hurt
at
the
the
Avatara,
Avatar.
yeah.
And then over there on the far side, we lost another Avatar to the Vanguard
flank,
clone.
to the Vanguards. So that Avatar is broken.
We stop rolling into the. Oh, you pulled more sables. Oh wait, those are superior creations, aren't they?
Yeah. 8.
We stop rolling in the dice pool.
Probably. We don't actually have much time. Yeah, with that. Yep. Sorry, guys.
Take 5. You take 6.
So there was a clash right now. The Superior Creation Brutes took out one of the. Everything's so squeezed here and there. So the Superior Creation Brutes of Ben's swung, took out one of the Brutes of Carl's, and then his Brutes moved up. But
I swore nothing this turn.
Ben scores 3 this point, correct?
No, because he has more total.
Oh, he has more total stand, so he can test you. So it's 0-0. Oh,
Yeah,
that
right now
flank's gonna
Carl's
be
winning by
interesting.
1 point. So it's still continuing to be a close game.
Yep.
What it's going to come down to is they're going to run out of time on the time limit for the round.
Oh no, that is terrible. Oh, time limits in tournaments. I did not see that unit of bound clones back there. Okay. Okay, that swings the math again quite a bit. Oh, with time, those 3 points become very, very precious.
People in the chat are telling us to play faster.
It's difficult, guys. Eh? It is very. First of all, they're regular opponents, so their natural rhythms probably come into play.
Sorry, it's 6-5. It's been last turn as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
So there
the
is
score
that.
should actually be
Then there's the fact we
6-5
were asking them
in
to
favor
roll
of
in the little die roller.
Ben. Okay.
And then again, if you've played an opponent a million times, you can get caught overthinking it. But these are very complicated armies with very, very messy interactions. There's a lot of priorities here. This is where I would love having one of those abilities that lets you like see what happens, and then replace a card on top and be like, okay, if I made priority, this is what I like. If I didn't make priority, I'd rather do this.
Sensory augmentation. Yeah. Force-grown drones. I'm gonna activate force-grown drones instead. Feel them. They are going to eat.
So that's literally what he used. He used sensory augmentation to do exactly what I said. Find out what the first card to be activate was, and then respond. So he went for the force-grown drones, who are inspiring and swinging. That's a lot of swings. So the heal?
2 is 9.
Oh no, I misunderstood what was happening entirely. That was defense rolls.
Yep, because he has AOD as well.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Inspire Clash.
So what I said was right, but first you have to take the damage from the Aura of Death. I'm not that clueless, thank God.
Executor.
There's a lot
Don't
of
judge.
Aura of Death floating around in this
Huh?
match. So there's a lot of Aura of Death floating around.
Yeah.
No, Executor in a sense, these two stands in the Vanguard, everything else there. So the 2 Vanguard.
6 attacks in the Vanguard.
Yep. 1 hit. Executor. 2 flawless and 2 take 1.
So 2 sets. Take them, play once, take 1, take 3 total.
So that's the Executor and this.
And I'll roll the force growth, but yeah, you can do the Avatar.
Oh yeah, you got attacks there.
Yep.
We'll wait.
Um,
Just gonna charge you.
yes, the Avatar is going to charge the archers, the marksmen, lock them up, but the combat of the force-grown drones is still taking place.
I assume the 5 hit tilted over. Yeah. And yeah, they're bashed in though. And they're down 2 stands for the round for purposes of breaking.
That was a good clash. That was a very good clash by the force-grown drones.
Take it. Take 1. Good. Ferromancer. We'll go induce lethargy on the sense. Dread plus 1 or dread and plus 1 attack on force drones. On the bottom.
Answer.
So and he used it where? Oh yes, because when they activate, they're not going to be able to respond to the Aura of Death. Yeah. So what just happened is the Ferromancer activated, induced lethargy on the Avatara. Not the Avatara, on the Incarnate Sentinels, and reduced their defense so that when they activate and swing in, they're going to take a lot of damage in return. But they're going to sting.
At this point, it can get a little bit hard to follow just because they are
It's
playing
moving so
fast. They're
fast,
trying
yep.
to get through as much of this as they can before the time runs out.
Fluid, take aim, ball. 6, 12, 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9.
Take 5.
High clone. Oh god, high clone. Come on, buddy. 6. Yep.
So what you're seeing now is
No deadlies. Take 3. So live with 1 wound.
so what you're seeing right now is the Vanguard clone infiltrators and the Highborn shooting at the brutes. That was a very poor showing from them.
I'm sure he's disappointed to see that they survived with 1 wound remaining.
That is not how that usually goes.
Yes. Oh shit. No, we're not doing that. Okay. Yeah, not risking that. Burnout and Spark Flash. Yeah, 12.
12 hits?
Yeah, he just hit with all of them.
Oh, wow.
I only take 2. Yeah. Okay, you got me. Yep. Sorry, camera.
So that was 12 hits on the Avatara, hitting with everything. At which point the Avatara proceeded to save all but 2 heroically, and then lost the morale for both of them and died.
I accept. I'm tenacious. Or yeah, good.
So here we have a duel from the Lineage Highborn onto the Executor.
Ablative 1 and 1 resolve. Good. Take 1. Yep. Swings back. He's plus 1 attack now. It doesn't matter. 3 hits, only 1. Take 1. Yep.
They both take 1 wound. Nope. The Avatara takes 2 wounds. The Clone Executor takes 1. Advantage of not having your Ferromancer all the way in the front where he can get dunked on by anybody. Huh?
3 hits.
Yeah. Oh. Hour of Death. Oof.
I saved 3 of them, which is enough, so I'm still alive. I'm broken though. One. They were already. Oh shit. They were already wounded. I just took 9.
So they survive with 1 wound. That's still going to give them a bunch of attacks.
Rally flash. 2. Did you let them? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Take 1 and double it.
Again, anything, any chip damage in here is going to count.
Executor. I'll duel you. Alright.
Okay.
They're
Duel
doing
again.
another duel.
Yep. Because apparently the Executor is built for duels. That's why he gets to ignore so many hits.
You want to resolve? You get 2 on you? Yep, he's got 2 on him. It'll be 1 flawless and 3 clean 1. Fail the flawless. Take 2 of the clean 1s. 2 resolves. Yeah. No, because I'm 5. So she's up 5. Oh, how many did she take? She failed 1 resolve, so she took 2. And she took 2 last turn. She failed that resolve. Gotcha. She's a hero. Yeah.
So the Avatara is getting the rough end of those exchanges. She's down to her last wound. Executor's not that much better. He's down to 2 wounds remaining.
They both kind of just been trading blows.
Yep.
What'd be funny is if in their next duel they both kill each other and they both die simultaneously.
That has been known to happen. More often than people would think in duels.
That's what happens when you got the attacks happening at the same time.
Yep.
And then 3 more impacts.
Okay, so the Brutes flank charged.
All right, use stand for impacts. Take 4. Resolves. 5s. We're good. No rerolls because I'm a good warlord. Oh man, only 1 sand dies to the Ferromancer. 5, 7. On 3s, flurry. 6 more. Like,
So all the casualties that you see being removed now are from the flank charge of the Brutes and the Ferromancer.
Tenacious 1. You're up once. You took 4. Okay. Oh, yep, fine, once. Yep, so 4 down to 3. 3 resolves. Indomitable 1, so take 5. I've taken 5 dice and then tenacious 1.
really just turning into a mosh pit.
So
I will
you
be-
turn to be straight up, right? Because you can't wheel into the stand. So you get like this. Okay, that's fine.
I will be honest, that is not what I would have done. I would have put more bodies on the objective and claimed it.
Well,
I think that might be one of those things that happens due to the speed of play and the intensity of focus.
maybe. Or maybe he's got some master plan that isn't one we would think of.
The Incarnate Sentinels have yet to swing, right?
I don't believe they have.
Deal 4 of those. Resolves on 4s now. Rerolling successfuls. So I took 4 or 5 4s, so I just full on loses it. Avatar of Death.
No, I definitely would have gone for the bodies on the objective.
Fruit drones. So I didn't go with those ones. I didn't want to do this charge, but this was more important than that.
Boots are doing a little bit of a side shuffle.
Yeah, you gotta just stay on that corner. Yep. You can wheel around it to get straight up.
Carefully maneuvering through that is. Oh no, did the Incarnates charge this round? Yes, they reformed charged, correct? Or was that last round?
I think that might have been last round. Because last round, it ended with nobody scoring that because it was contested.
You are right, because it was contested. So that was last round. So the Incarnates have yet to swing. I normally like it when they put the card next to the unit they've activated, but it ends up cluttering the battlefield, so I understand why people don't do it.
I used to play by putting the card next to stuff, but same
It
thing.
clutters
It's
the
just it
battlefield
clutters
and
it up.
removes, yeah, and it removes the immersion.
Well, I guess those brutes are dead. This is moving really fast at this point, so it's kind of hard to keep up.
Yeah, the brutes swung in. That was, I assume, that was. What took out your brutes in the center? What took out your brutes in the center?
His brutes clashed. They put one into Strix, or there were 2 of them left. They put one into Strix, one into brutes.
And one brute was able to take out the other brute? Wow.
No, he had 2, and then one died to lethal.
Okay.
Okay. So he hit them and then died to the lethal.
4, 5, 6, 4.
Okay.
I guess you can't inspire anyways. So. Yeah, so rally clash.
Okay, here we go.
You guys rush through the line.
So now we have the big clash. It's the Incarnate Sentinels against the Force Drone drones. Basically every hit is a squish.
And then 6 per character. You can say it's
So he had 11 damage that he took that he couldn't block, and then he took another 2 from the character. So 13 total
13,
damage.
So that's 3 stands.
You have to remove this stand and then slide him over because that's the command. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess then you have to strand these first. Alright, so yeah, you're broken.
So here we have a curious thing where the command stand can't be removed except last. That means the
It came down to priority. So because the command stand and the character are higher priority than not leaving the enemy stranded, he had to take the
he
stand
had to
that would
take
make
and
him
then
stranded.
stranded the enemy. Yep. Yep, I guess he can move in the bodies, prevent him from scoring, but the brutes would have
Yes,
done
the brutes would have
same
allowed him to
to score this round, wouldn't they?
maybe, depending on if he could get them all on. Because there are
There are 4 that could
three
score,
scoring stands from what I can see.
plus the Ferromancer. That would have been 5, and he has 3.
Yep, so that would have done the job.
But that objective is not looking. And the frantic place slows down as they consider the command action, the command sequence again. But that objective is looking very vulnerable, the far objective. This is not easy. I take my hat off to people who commentate games of faster paced things than this.
So I think at this rate, they might even have enough time to get through the remaining rounds.
To the remaining rounds, yeah. If they're going this fast and they've got 30 more minutes.
As long as they don't spend 20 minutes
And the
on
command
the command
phase.
phase.
Easy to do. I did not see those bound clones come in and block the ones that came in and blocked the brutes.
Oh, see, they were in my blind spot because
Yeah.
of that terrain piece from where I'm sitting,
And
so I didn't see them at all.
that changes the equation on the far side completely, because if you had 1 free unit of brutes, they could have charged the clones, and then the other brute could have charged them. It would have been, you would have
Yeah.
had the upper hand, let's say.
Yeah,
Now,
which means that's going to come down to a lot more who goes first over in that center spot. Because either
Yep.
one's going to cripple the other just enough that it's going to start to crumble.
yep. But is it? A very important priority role.
Ooh, a 4. And a 6 on the other player. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the Incarnate
Okay.
Sentinel swing.
This is going to be fun to watch.
So right now we've got Aura of Death.
It threw me off so much when the Spires started getting Aura of Death added to their rules in place of the decay.
The sort of the you take decay. Yep.
Because I've gotten so used to my own community being the only one that has Aura of Death widespread because of my old Dominion with my Bone Golems. And then all of a sudden one day I'm playing and the Spires players are like, oh yeah, take some Aura of Death. And I'm like, you stole my mechanic.
I'm gonna. Their back is on the hill. 'Cause I'm gonna have
Overwhelming power. So
So he just temporarily moved his other drones so that he could remove his little movement tray.
oh, that wasn't enough to wipe out the unit?
That was.
They were broken, so I only killed 2 stands. The AOD hurt, but still worth it.
Now, did they inspire on that clash?
They did.
Cool. So, I mean, that has changed things quite a bit over there.
Yep.
And I love how he's got the single Avatara preventing the
Oh
marksman
god,
from
yes, that
firing.
is so frustrating. There's a lot of points tied up in those marksmen. Unable to affect the battlefield.
They'll throw his last clash into the Vanguard close. 4 and 3 1 and yeah, 5 hits.
So the character there used his final die fighting to kill one standoff there.
Yep. Oh, those brutes would have been so much better served scoring.
Yeah, right now he had the brutes move over instead of charge.
He would have denied the 3 points, earned 3 points himself, and he would be very hard pressed to get brutes onto the objective. It's that tunnel vision you develop, right? Everything's going in here, everything.
Yeah, just throw him into the fight,
Yeah.
do the casualties.
So difficult.
7, 8, 10.
So, was it an Inspire clash or a Rally clash?
On which one?
On the Incarnate Sentinels.
The Incarnate's inspired and clashed.
Wouldn't they have been broken by losing 2 stands to the Aura of Death? No, because they're 5.
No, they started with
5.
5.
They would have had to
need
be
lose
4,
3.
yeah.
Yep.
Take nothing. And then I'll lethargy last turns.
Avatar, Inspired Clash.
So I'll take 3, lose a stand.
Oh, so frustrating. Because if it got lucky, took out one of the. No, because again it would have been 3. Nope, ignore me, ignore me, ignore me. I can perform basic arithmetic.
Wonder how many more times that Incarnate Sentinel is going to topple over. Wouldn't have been a problem if we had
that's-
a level table.
If we had it leveled, I do not get me started. We have tables. That is more than we started with when we came to set up. Let me leave it at that. We had no game mats. We had no objective zones.
Marksman clones, Inspire Clash.
If you want something done, you got to do it yourself.
3
Lesson learned.
I mean, that's kind of the way conventions go.
Yeah.
You get what you get. There's so many tables they had to set up.
How did that happen?
The marks, so the Ferromancer lethargied the Avatar, and then the Marksman hit him on 2 less.
Okay.
So the Ferromancer hit the Avatara with the
With
induced lethargy,
Yeah.
which then
reducing
allowed
his
the
defense.
marksman to be able to actually get the damage through.
Because it had 1 wound left. Oh,
Smart.
is it,
7 or 6.
there is a big unit of brutes missing with a Ferromancer in it. What happened?
Take 1. Literally.
The brutes with the Ferromancer, they're right here.
No, no, no. Oh. Benz. Where did your brutes?
Oh yeah, they did die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof, it's going to be a nail biter. Right. He's going to have to keep. Oh. Oh.
That'll be 14.
So save 6. So I take 8. Yep. I need to roll 1. Take 9.
So the brutes wipe out the bound clones. And that leaves them fighting the single brute and the marksman clones. Now the marksman clones, the Vanguard clone infiltrators, I mean, are going to have a field day now.
They're. Yeah, they're gonna shoot in there.
Yep.
6, 12, 19. And 2 back. So we got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 9 for the DC.
9 hits from the Vanguard clone. Executor.
He's taking 3 of those. He blocks the other 6.
Oh dear God.
And then 5 from the character. Takes 2 more.
So now
Okay,
I have a
4 more.
question. The wounded stand is the one that has to be removed, but that's the one that's in contact with the brute. Okay, the brute will just shuffle up and remain in contact with the remainder of the unit.
Yes, he just pushed
Okay.
him.
Force gun drones, charge.
Oh, things are getting.
I can only get 3 and I can just go like that. Yeah. Very
It is very close.
We went from the board being like full of stuff to just like
To just
empty.
empty. Yep.
Just like that.
I might bite my words regarding the use of the brutes. I was not expecting one clash action to be able to wipe out the entire unit. So I might regret.
They might be in the right spot after all, maybe.
And now there was a charge that accomplished nothing.
Well, it didn't accomplish nothing. I guess, yeah, no, it did. Because they were already on the objective, weren't they?
Yep. And I assume that is his warlord.
No, his warlord is the Ferromancer in the brute unit.
Ah, okay, good. Okay, yes, then you can risk him a lot more.
Yeah.
I guess no, though it makes perfect sense because that allows him to lock them in place, flank them with the brutes when they come in. Oh my God, that priority is going to be critical. Yeah.
Now, are they doing the command phase again?
Oh, because he doesn't score because he's contesting. That's what the charge accomplishes. Woohoo. Yes.
So you got 4, so you should be at 14. I killed
And once again, they have flipped who's in the lead. They're staying within 1 to 2 points of each other and just flipping each turn.
Carl must have really spiked his clash with the brutes to wipe out the Ben's brutes on the flank.
I confess I didn't see the
I didn't see
activation. It
went
was
by
happening so
very
fast.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had 2 Fairmancers over there. So he could have used one of the Fairmancies. Because we know he used the one Fairmancer to
To
do
reduce.
the lethargy. He could have used the other one to buff the brutes he's with, perhaps. I also don't remember what condition the other brute unit was in when they
Oh, it
jumped
was
into the
intact.
fight.
It was intact.
Slash no inspire.
This is a clash with no inspire because he will probably try to reform. Oh.
High glow. Come on in. Highborn. 5 from the Highborn.
Hit 5 on 1s from Highborn.
Yep.
Take 4. So that's 8 broken. 8 resolves on no purposely mindless, and 3 is reroll and fails.
Yep.
They live.
Yep.
On 2.
Live on 2.
Well, he took a gamble. Didn't quite pay off because he
It
broke
did,
them,
and
but they
He
did survive.
broke them, but they managed to just barely survive.
He's going to replace him with different models because he couldn't
Yeah.
get him out of his little movement tray.
Well, yeah, no, that movement tray is going to be is going to make it difficult. And
There you go.
oof, so that was a clash with no inspire in the hopes of them reforming to put more of his troops on the table and block the flank charge. But he survived with 2 wounds remaining. So that's a reformed clash. Trying to wipe out the last brute.
7.
That's pretty good. I'll take none.
Oh, a spiked save.
Explosion.
Oof, 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 oof. That will free up the brute to try to score the far objective.
Sorry. Pumping stuff.
It might come down to like small points differences. The warlord kill might come in. What round are we on?
This is only round 7 right now.
7,
So if they don't run out of time, they
8, 9.
Not
He
much.
would start scoring. Oh, you can end up with a very, very, very delicate game of cat and mouse where the onslaught hide behind the building not to be shot and stay in such a position that the vanguards can't move on to the objective.
he only has 1 brute left in the middle now too.
It's enough to score.
I guess he'll do something. They already did retreat. +1 march on.
Interesting.
It's coming for you.
Yep.
I guess it makes sense because
It makes sense because this
he wouldn't have been
objective
able
is
to score. Yeah.
Marksman, take aim and volley.
Yep.
Don't think I'm effective.
So now this is the marksman.
yes.
shooting at-
They're getting ready to shoot the sentinels. I'm assuming.
Why not a charge from the large brute unit? Wouldn't that be more effective? All he has to do is take out 1 sentinel and break them.
Well, but see,
No,
if
again,
he
they're
shoots the
3.
sentinels, and takes them out that way, the brutes are free to go after the important objective. Well, important, I suppose, is a relative term, but
Yeah, but then the other guys get to reform. And now the brute drones will do the charge.
You gotta go straight forward. You can't slash them. Yep, you're not getting them. Yep.
Okay, that is a far worse charge than I thought it would be. Okay,
yeah,
I see.
because you can't wheel backwards anymore. You're
Like just a tiny amount away, so they basically had to go straight forward. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
They didn't
okay,
have
from
space
where I
to line
stood,
it up in any better
s-
position.
From where I saw it, it looked like a flank, but yes, if it's a frontal charge with only the Ferromancer in contact.
You have to go straight forward for it, so you just get stranded because this guy dies.
So then do I? So I charge and I still have the second action. Yes.
Okay. I guess he wasn't damaged, so I have to put it here because that reduces combat balance.
Okay.
So it's actually this guy has to die.
Okay.
Yeah. That's weird. Yeah. That was.
Yeah, it's a weird engagement they have there,
Yeah.
because it basically came down to, since it's not possible for that other unit to push into combat, he had to do the stand that would not reduce the number of units engaging him.
Engaged, yes.
Are you still modified?
Oh, yeah.
How many ones do you have left?
Two. Three. Lineage and Highborn. EU4 should kill them, so I don't really want a duel. I shouldn't die to that, but like it's 2 attacks. Yeah, so you are still broken. That doesn't matter.
Okay, he chooses not to risk the duel and count on the Aura of Death to take care of the last drones.
Did you get the C4? Go down fighting. One hit.
Okay. So Aura of Death killed the 4 Scrum drones. He scored a hit with the going down fighting for the Ferromancer, but Ben saved it. So
This round is almost over. There's only a little bit left.
So I kill.
Do I get a Ferromancer activation?
This guy went so good time.
Well, he didn't go because I went with the other one, the augmentation. He didn't go. I did something with.
You used him to double activate that.
No, they didn't double activate this turn. They did it last turn. Is it okay if I just do it?
Oh, that's how he did it. He double activated the brutes. That's how they were able to wipe the other brutes.
Okay, because that otherwise that would have been a spike of such epic proportions. I would have expected more of a response from the players.
4, 2, 4.
Now it all makes sense.
7, 8, 9 this turn. Yep. I scored nothing.
Yep.
So what's this round? Yeah.
I scored 9.
So that's a big leap for Ben because he wiped out a lot of units this round.
And once again, they have swung the game, but this time it's enough of a swing that I don't think. I don't know. We'll see.
No, because if those go down, they gave 2 points plus the unit plus the objective.
Well,
So that's 3-5.
he has an 8-point lead right now, so he has to be able to score 8 points.
I think that's enough because it's 3 for the objective, 2 for the.
With the remaining rounds left, if they get all the way through round 10, then yeah, he can turn it around. if they run out of time before they can finish this round, then it'll
Yep.
be a Ben victory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 5 minutes. He earned a lot
So
of points.
it's
this round.
basically going to come down to if those Incarnate Sentinels die, then you can just talk your way through the remaining rounds and score the points.
Oh no. Yep. You're first. So down by 8. We're down by 8.
Marksman taking volley.
Marks and fire at the unit.
Take aim and volley. That's kind of what I figured would be the first thing to happen. Because unfortunately, if he wants to do damage with those brute drones, he's going to have to do a combat reform to get more troops in range
That would also have let him put more
on this. Yeah.
on the objective. Because what I'm afraid of is the other brute will then come in, tag them, prevent them from moving.
Okay, there they go. So at this point, he'll just get up on the objective with his brutes and score for the rest of the game.
It all depends. If that's a brute, he gets tagged. And he can't move. He has to clash, kill it.
Oh, that's okay. Yep, I see what you're saying.
So that has to be clash, kill it. And a move doesn't really get you there, does it? Oh yeah, side shuffle would.
He could still do a combat reform, and if he combat reforms in his next round, turns around, moves, stands onto there.
But that would be next round.
Yeah, so he won't get the points this round,
That hurts.
but he still has round 9 and 10 that they could just talk through, potentially.
The onslaught's hiding.
They're in the stack somewhere.
Yeah.
This is dead.
Oh. It all comes down to the positioning of those brute drones. So he did a combat reform, allowing him to put one brute drone on the objective.
Now, did they roll to see if it was a fighting reform or a clean reform?
Yep, yeah. He passed, he rolled a 2.
Okay.
And now, because he's induced lethargy, that brute is in a lot of trouble. 5 hits on the brute. It all comes down to this armor. Well, not really, because his zone has been claimed. And it's not enough. The brute is out.
His next turn.
There's still time. Okay. It's getting very, very tight.
So now it's going to come down to going for that objective on the
Yep.
left flank.
But that 6 is not good.
Reroll, I guess. One.
That's a move. And a fire.
Now, you guys watching can't see this, but all the other players that haven't called it quits for the night are sitting around watching this game. This is the last game that's still going, I believe.
That looks like a very good roll. So that's a unit out, plus the objective claimed by the executor, who's medium. So that'll give him 4 points.
If they don't, by some miracle, get wiped out by that other regiment.
Oh no, they're
Oh, they're gone. Okay, I
of course they're
see.
gone.
Wow.
3. So that's 4 more points. Yeah.
Yeah, so I get 6, which gets me to 29. You get 3, which gets me to 29. We play the last turn, and I win by 1.
So in round 9, they would have ended up tied.
Can those
and
guys
then if they did a
do
10th
something
round,
like break you?
it would.
I thought there was 5 minutes left a few minutes ago.
We have 1 minute left.
Still got time. Marksman, reform. Yep.
Yeah, this is turn 9. So turn
No, they're still in 9 because he's moving the marksman, but then they'll do 10.
Yeah, he's got nothing else.
So
Okay, this is the last round. They're just
yeah.
going to roll for
It
initiative.
basically comes down to can they cause enough damage to break them so they can't score.
Yep.
And because he won the priority,
He's
he
gonna
just
move them
claims
further
objective,
away.
moving them out of range.
fucking really 10 turns.
Okay, that's game.
Point.
That was a brutal game.
So that ends up with Ben. So the final scores are Ben winning by 1 point, right? Yep.
Yeah.
I should have been more cautious.
So that was a fun
That
ending
was
for
a
that
nail
game.
biter. That was an absolute nail biter.
So we'll be back at this tomorrow, bright and early, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, I think is what we're in.
Yes. Nevada is closer to that ocean.
So we look forward to seeing you guys. We've got 2 rounds to play out tomorrow. So have a good night, and we'll catch you.